Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, Danielle, for your nice little message there. Thank you all for joining me on this webinar. Ricky is my name. I'm a digital business advisor at Business Station. And today what we're going to talk about is how to get your business found on Google, not just necessarily Google, any search engine. So the primary search engine we usually use though and talk about is Google, but it applies to Bing and any other search engine equally as much. Okay, so we're going to talk about how you can optimize your website, and I'll define optimize later, but it's a fancy word for basically doing a few things to improve your Google search rankings. And we can do this just by following some relatively easy to implement steps. And you can do this yourself, or you can just, I guess, outsource it if you decide that's what you want to do. And, if you improve your Google search engine rankings, what that's going to do is attract more traffic to your website. And therefore, what should follow would be more conversions, more subscribers, more members, whatever your conversion goals might be. Okay, so there's a little bit to get through today. So I don't expect you to sort of remember everything as I go through. So at the end, I leave a link for you to access some of the resources I talk about today. And also, this presentation and just a simple 12-step checklist you can follow, or a 12-step guide on how to start optimizing your site, because you don't have to do all of these things all at once. Okay, and if you have any questions, just maybe put your question into the chat function there, and I'll get to that as soon as I can. But any question you have, doesn't matter how complicated it might seem or how silly it might seem, happy to try and answer that. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're going to talk about. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about what SEO is, essentially, just the basics of what it is. And then I'll answer that question of where you need to start. So where do you start, optimizing your site? What do you need to do first? And some of those things are just what I refer to here as the SEO basics. So, your site structure, your keywords, optimizing your existing content around those keywords, putting some links in within your site, but also to your site, which is very, very important. And then things like performance and security, which are often overlooked, particularly the performance side. And, mobile friendly design. And then we'll leave you with that 12-point action plan at the end. Okay, so what is SEO? Now, basically, this is my definition. It's really understanding what your potential customers are searching for and including these search phrases in your website's content. That's putting it very simplistically. But that's one thing it is. The other thing it is about building your website's authority around a particular subject matter or topic or industry or product, for example. Because search engines don't want to put any search result on a page. They want to put the most authoritative ones they think are the most authoritative in that particular area. And then the third thing you need to do is make sure your website is fast, underline fast, and secure, as well as mobile friendly. The reason I underline fast is because it's the most overlooked and has a huge impact on people converting. So they might get to your site and then the performance might make them decide to go elsewhere. And that's what you'll see as a bounce rate in your Google Analytics statistics. Well, it's not always because of that, but it's often because of that. Okay, so that's what it is. Three things that search engines take into account when they're looking to rank a page for a particular search term would be three things. First, relevance. So how relevant is your content to what the person's looking for? And this is what is often called on-page SEO. So this is stuff on your page that you need to optimize to attract search matches, essentially. The second is to build that authority I was talking about before. So this is often referred to as off-page SEO. And this is how authoritative your site is. It's really, if you boil it down, it's about two things: how many sites ideally of a higher authority, but not always, how many sites link to your site. And that's what we call a backlink. So that's very, very, very important. That's showing Google that you are a decent enough authority that they can put you up as a maybe a high ranking result or a lower ranking result, depending on the quality of those links. And also social signals. So how many people are sharing your content, liking your content, following you, etc. And then the third thing is performance, which I talked about already. So we'll touch on all of these as we go through. So that's what SEO is. And if you want to optimize your site around or for SEO to improve your rankings, there's basically some simple things you need to do. You need to develop these things. So the headlines, the body text or the descriptions, and what we call metadata, which is basically three things: your meta title, meta description, and alt image tags. And we'll talk about those, and some links. So that's what you would need to do to optimize your web page. And we'll talk about how you do that. And you need to do that uniquely for each page, around a specific keyword for each page. And that's a keyword phrase rather than just a keyword. So a multi-word phrase. And like I say, secure and fast. And then there's backlinks, which we'll talk about separately. Okay, so that's what SEO is. So why would you do it? You know, why don't you just leave your website to just get found by itself? Well, it's not as simple as that. Unless you're just a very good, you just happen to hit the nail on the head with the way you write your content, that might be fine. But most people will need to sort of, and particularly if you're in a competitive marketplace, you need to work on your SEO. So why do it? Here's some potential reasons. So there was this study done by SEMrush, and SEMrush is one of the leading tools you use to audit your site from an SEO point of view. And they studied 13 e-commerce verticals, and they found that of those 13, 5 of them, so that's music, books, furniture, home and garden, and electronics, relied almost totally on organic SEO results for their traffic. And of the 13 in total, organic traffic actually accounted for, they're including direct there, but organic traffic accounted for more than 50% of all the traffic to those e-commerce verticals. So if you're an e-commerce store, you have an e-commerce business, then, you know, organic traffic is really important to getting traffic to your site. And if you think about the funnel process, you know, where, you know, people become aware of you and then they consider you and then you convert them into a customer, the way digital, you know, it's the inbound marketing model, if you like. Organic traffic is critical to you achieving your conversion goals, your sales, your leads, whatever you're looking for. And you can compare that to the other percentages there. So that's social media, organic social media, just under 5%, paid, which is advertising, referral traffic, and direct traffic. If you're not an e-commerce site, say you're an information type site, there was another study done by Outbrain, which showed that for information sites like blog sites or news sites, that sort of thing, it's by far the most dominant source of traffic generating channel for those particular types of websites. The other reason is that it's free. If you do it yourself, it's free. And I'm a strong believer, even though I do this for customers, you know, the people that have the most expertise in their products and services are the business owners. So it sometimes makes sense for people to do it themselves if they are able to. It's also recurring. So once you stop, if you do your SEO, you stop, you're still going to get the benefits of that ongoing. So it's recurring and high converting. And what we mean by that is that because people are searching for your products, if you're optimizing your site enough so you're attracting the right type of customer, then they're partly qualified and looking for your product or service, so more likely to convert. Okay, so that's why you should do it. Now, there's a whole bunch of other reasons why you should do it too, because it also helps your advertising. If you're going to do Google ads or any other type of advertising, it's probably going to help there. it's just going to increase your visibility of your site. So let's just have a look at that. So this is a Google search page, and I just want to show you that it's more than just organic search results. So I've searched for women's summer dress, and the first things you can see are some organic results. There's some ads on the right, shopping ads. There's some more shopping images there, organic results. There's Google My Business. I happen to be in Townsville, so these are all Townsville businesses. Google My Business, which is a business directory. There's more organic results. Some images, and that's basically it. So just on that one page already, we've seen organic results, Google My Business, shopping, and well, advertising image results. So let's just look at shopping. It's another tab on the search page. If your product is sort of suited to this sort of environment, it's definitely something you should look at. The first row there are ads. It's also search-based, so it's based on what people are searching for. So women's summer dress, obviously, it's going to show these dresses. These listings here, they're all free. So these people are getting free listings on here. They're organic results, but more shopping-based rather than just search, like text-based. And, you know, this applies not just to women's fashion, obviously, any sort of physical product. There's also images as well. So some people will find you through it, searching for images, depending on your particular product. And of course, which I don't talk about here, there's videos. So to be able to, you know, YouTube and other videos, but just to, you know, paint a picture there that trying to rank on a search page is multifaceted, and you can use it in a number of different ways. Okay, so that's what SEO is. Now, where do I start? It's a common question I get asked. So the first place I would recommend is just using an SEO audit tool. This one here I'm using is by SEOreviewtools.com, but there's lots of other ones out there. This is a free one. The free ones tend to do just a single page, usually a home page, and it'll give you just a high level sort of overview, which is probably all you want at this stage. The more expensive ones, or the premium ones like SEMrush, they'll give you a real detailed analysis of your website, your socials, your local presence, all these sorts of things, of your whole site as well. So I'm just going to show you this one here. These audit tools, what you do is you put your website address in. So this is SEO Review Tools, by the way, it's called .com. And then you put the keyword in that you want to rank for, and then you perform a check. It'll come back. This one normally takes a couple of minutes, and it'll come back and do provide some information for you that you can start to work on straight away. So they all work roughly the same. They'll give you a score out of 100. They'll tell you some errors and warnings that you can work on, for example, and some things you're doing well. So the score out of 100 is not neither here nor there, really. It's just a guide, but these errors and warnings, you should have a look at those. They'll usually give you a to-do list. So you can see here, the to-do list, the 2 errors. You need to improve the number and quality of linking websites pointing to your domain. So I'm just going to pause that for a second. This is a screen recording. So the first one is what I was talking about in terms of backlinks. So it's basically saying you don't have enough other sites linking to your site. So we don't know how much of an authority you are for pets, for example. So if you're a pet store, you might be a member of a pet industry association or have other businesses and business directories linking to you, and that might assist. Okay, so keep going there. So it says you need to add an H1 heading to your web page. Then it talks about title tag not being too long, and the meta description. So all these things I'll talk about, they're very easy to fix, and these are on-page issues that you can address. It also says you should improve the exposure your content gets on social media. So there's a couple of pointers, if you like, so you know sort of where you can start. So backlinks, doing some of that on-page stuff, and maybe improving your social media presence. These tools will also give you some information about other things like your title tag. So your title tag is what people will see in search results. Your meta description is what people will see as the paragraph under the title tag in search results. And we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so that's a starting point, gives you an idea of, some things you might want to fix. There's also Google Analytics. Google Analytics will tell you a couple of things. It will tell you who's visiting your site, a bit about their demographics and behaviors, but also, basically what people do when they get onto your site. Search Console, Google Search Console is really about, which is another tool we'll talk about briefly, that's about how people find your site. Google Analytics is how they behave on your site, essentially. So if you don't use this, it's really, I would recommend it because it's really powerful. So I'm just going to show you just an overview quickly, and then I'll show you some things that you might want to have a look at. So this is just the home page, and this will tell you things like, the number of users you're having over a given period, what sort of revenue they generated, and the conversion rate, that sort of thing. And you can change that time window, to a bigger window if you want to see a bigger picture view, for example. There's also the next window is how many active users you have on the site right at that moment, just to, I guess, to see how active it is and what pages they're accessing. Then they'll provide you a little insight into something that you might take action on. So it might be a useful bit of data that you could use. Then the important information, who your users are, where they're coming from, what time of the day they visit, and what channels are they coming from? Is it social media, paid search, organic search, or other? And you could even funnel down further by looking at source medium, and you can see, is it mobile, Facebook, Google Ads, Google SEO, or is it Bing SEO, for example? A whole different range of ways you can see where your traffic's coming from. And then what device they're on. So in this case, 82% of users are on mobile devices, the pages they are accessing, and a range of other data that's very, very useful. So, there's also a range of other things you can look at, like who your audience is. So who are your customers? You can actually see who they are, what age group they fall into, what gender, and also how each of those different, cohorts react on your website. So are they bouncing more? So in other words, are they leaving before they're engaging in the site, or are they doing more on certain pages than others? So it'll just give you an insight into what your customers are doing, gender, etc., and seeing what maybe the different genders do differently, for example. It's quite useful. Now, I'm just going to show you one other thing here, and that's behavior. So behavior shows you what people do on your site. So I'm actually going to show you two. There's user flows. And as you can see, it shows you how people, where they land on your web page, on your website, and then what pages they go to. Do they go to different products or collections, for example? But I'm just going to actually change this. You can change the parameter there. So I've got it set at country, but you can change it to device or browser they're using, whatever. There's also behavior flow. It's slightly different, and it's just showing you very similar things, but slightly different information. In this case, I'm going to choose the source they came from, and you can see based on where they're coming from, how they're interacting with your site. So Facebook versus Google versus direct. And as you can see, they're going to different pages because of the way Google search works versus say mobile versus say social posting. So Google, with search pages, your home page or your collections or product categories are the most likely pages to rank. But you can just have a look at that and see at each stage what sort of drop-offs you're getting. So you're going to get drop-offs at each stage. It's just natural. People have seen what they want, they go, or they got interrupted, or whatever the case may be. It's really where you've got high levels of drop-offs that you need to, the alarm bells start to ring. Now, this website we're looking at here has very, very low drop-offs compared to other websites. The bounce rate across this site is only 1 or 2%. I would have a look at that if I was you and just make sure that your bounce rate isn't 50, 60, 70 or 80 or higher percent, because it does happen. It's quite common actually. So you want to make sure that if you are attracting website traffic to your website, that you're not losing half of them almost instantly because there's some issue there. And it's usually a performance issue. So you might want to just have a look at that. Okay, but by doing some of those things, you might get an understanding of what, some of the things you need to do. And most of the time, they're going to fall into the area of what I call SEO basics. And they're things you can mostly do yourself or get someone to do relatively straightforwardly for you. So I'm just going to go through these and then we'll go into a bit of detail for each of them. So there's the site structure, the way your site is set up and, keeping it relatively simple. The keywords that you want to rank for each of the pages on your website, identifying what they are. So sorry, Gigi, I just saw your message then. So that SEO checker I was using before was called, it's actually SEO-reviewtools.com. It's called that because they have a number of different other tools that you might find quite useful. They're all free. And then one of the tools, which is the one I used, is called SEO Website Checker. It's just one of their tools. So SEO-reviewtools.com. Good. It's quite simple, but it's used by some of the key industry people. So it must be quite good. I found it to be quite good for free, Okay, so once you've identified what those keywords are, what you're going to do is then really write some content around them. It's a little bit like someone giving you an essay topic, if you like. It doesn't always have to be an essay, but you know what you're writing about, essentially. And then a couple of other things, security and performance, we've talked about, some links, and we'll talk about that. And then local SEO. Even if you don't rely totally on local customers, I'd still recommend doing this just to improve your overall visibility. Okay. Now, site structure. So site structure is important because a couple of reasons it's important. It gives you, as a website builder or owner, the context around which you're going to write your content. So it gives you a structure, if you like, for major keywords and the secondary keywords and that sort of thing. So that's important because they add what we call authority to the pages above them. So content is important from a range of the structure is important from a range of different points of view. From a navigation point of view, it's very important so customers can easily find stuff, but it's also important from this point of view. So your product pages add authority to the product category pages they belong to. And those product category pages add authority to the pages above them, and likewise all the way to the home page. And that's why your homepage or your major product categories are going to be the most likely pages to rank. It's just the way sort of Google works. So you always want to make sure that your homepage is properly optimized and that, to attract people, but also to convert people. So don't leave that just as like a doormat. It should actually be the storefront where they walk into, or the business frontage, and it's really where they're going to make a decision. So that's very, very important. So structure is important because of that context. It's also important because it makes it easy for Google to crawl. If your website's very deep with lots and lots of products and really complicated, you'll struggle to get Google to crawl and index the whole site because it only has a limited time to do that. Of course, it needs to be easy for your users. So if you've got a huge complicated navigational structure, that's going to be hard for your customers to find what they're looking for, and therefore for you to convert them into what you want to convert them. So, so there are some rules there that you need to keep it simple and scalable. And one way to do that is to keep every page 3 or fewer clicks away from the home page. And you can do that in just that classic structure I showed you before. Okay, so site structure is important. Once you've got that, you then need to really think about keywords for each of those bits of that structure, the pages, the product categories, the home page. Keywords are really important, and we know this because this is a quote from Google. They're actually telling us here that this is the basic underlying way that they identify whether content is relevant to a search query and whether they're going to match it. So the most basic signal that information is relevant is when a web page contains the same keywords as the search query. So that's Google's quote there. So what you should try and do from an SEO point of view is really do some research and identify what those target key phrases are going to be. And you might also have some related terms and variations on that target keyword phrase. But you want to sort of be disciplined and try and identify one unique one for each phrase rather than a word. So for each page or a piece of content, so that includes your home page, it includes your product pages, your blog posts, etc. And then you need to use that as a basis, that sort of keyword and that you've identified in those variations to write quality content, you know, so that's a quality title, quality description, or body, you know, text, etc. Image descriptions, those sorts of things. So the first step is to do some keyword research, and this is often overlooked, but it's really important. If you did a bit, you might find that some things really stand out. So when you're doing some keyword research, and I'll tell you how you can do that, but you need to think of three things. You need to firstly think about the search volume. You know, how many times are people searching for that query? Obviously, you want to have a search query that's attracting a decent amount of search queries every month. And you can find that out just using a tool like this one is Keyword Planner. And I'll tell you a bit more about that shortly. And that will tell you this is a bit dated now, it actually gives you a range per month. So 0 to 100, 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000, etc. And it also tells you the competition. Now, the competition, that relates to ads, when you're going to do advertising. So the only thing really you might want to think about is that the higher the competition usually means the higher commercial value. You know, they're more important because people are closer to making a decision on whatever they're making a decision on. So if you think about their intent, you know, they're ready to buy or getting ready to buy, they're gathering that information. So that's that advertising competition. But what I'm referring to here when I talk about competition from an SEO point of view is slightly different. And this is where I talked about the keyword phrase. So this is where you don't want to try and rank for a single keyword. It's just going to be too difficult to compete and therefore to attract traffic to your site and convert them. So, you know, this example here, it shows you the word t-shirts. If you think about every business out there that sells, manufactures, retails t-shirts, you're competing with everyone, you know, lots and lots of businesses, many of them which are, you know, have whole departments focused on their SEO and that sort of thing. So you really need to add some phrases to this. So you've got a long tail phrase. So if you think about it, people don't go to a Google search page and put in t-shirts. You know, they'll put an additional 2 or 3 words, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 words in there. You know, it might be brand of t-shirt or a color of t-shirt, what it's made from, location, pricing, all sorts of different things that they might be looking for. So the majority of keywords are actually long tail keywords or these multi-word phrases. And that's really where you need to think of those. So some examples, you know, might be if you're a home builder in Mount Barker, you might use Mount Barker Home Builder as your homepage keyword phrase, for example. If you have a product and it's a dress and it's a summer maxi dress, for example, it's floral, it's cotton, you might use all of those in a term like floral, cotton, summer maxi dress, as opposed to just dress or even just summer dress or, you know, 2 words, for example. And if you're a service, you might need to think about some things like what type of service you are. Yes, I do have some recommendations for keyword research tools. So I will actually go into those in a second. I actually use one of them shortly. So just bear with me on that one if you don't mind. So just if you're, say, an accountant, you want to try and think of some qualifying words that you can also use. So it might be the type of accountant you are, where you are, that sort of thing. So a small business accountant, Perth, for example, might be a good keyword phrase for your homepage in that case. Okay, and then you need to think about the relevance, of course. So how relevant, if you're trying to rank for a word, XYZ widgets in Townsville, then that should be where they're landing or something similar to that, you know. So rather than, you know, they're landing on a page that's completely either too general or completely different product, or, you know, that keyword just isn't found on that particular page. Okay, so if you keep that in mind, oh, I've got a problem with that image. Just going to try something. Anyway, I'm just trying to show you, yeah, I've got a problem with that image. Sorry about that. But if you just think about what I was trying to show you here is just your layers of keywords. So your homepage keyword might be, you know, what you do and where you are, for example, or for who. So XYZ service provider Brisbane, for example. Your product categories might be the type of service or product that you offer, and maybe a location or some other qualifier. So XYZ Services Brisbane. And then the service or product could just be the service or product name. So that's why services or products are relatively easier to do than the homepage and the other ones. So hopefully that makes sense. Oops. Oh, I really messed that slide up. Sorry about that. So keyword research. So yeah, I do recommend using Keyword Planner. Now, Keyword Planner, you can just get that by going to, it's free, and you can use, if you've got a Google ad account, you get access to that through Google Ads. It's maybe not the best one out there, but it's free. And there are other ones. There's kwfinder.com. That's more of a premium tool. They're pretty good. There's Ubersuggest. I think you need an account with Ubersuggest, and they'll let you do a certain number of keywords. So there's a few of them, but maybe start with Keyword Planner. And all you do is you go to this and you would put in a few seed words. So some that you might have already done research on, say maybe with just a Google search page, for example. So women's cotton top, cotton top for women. That's very similar, but anyway, I probably would have done a better example there if I had a bit more time, and maybe one more. You need probably at least 2 or 3 to give it some idea of what you're searching for. Yes, so Danielle's asked, does Google recognize individual words in the phrase? Yes, it does. So in my example before, where I showed you the summer maxi floral dress, you could rank for any combination of those. So summer dress, cotton maxi dress, you know, whatever the combinations are. And you'll often see these highlighted in your search results when you've searched for something, but the search result might be, you know, those words within a search page rather than all of those words together. So that's the thing. If you get your keyword phrase that you've identified, that might in itself not rank you might not get very much volume going to that. For example, if you were to put in, you know, women's fashion Perth, for example, might not get a lot of volume. You know, I don't know, I'm just guessing. But if you were to put women's fashion in there, and then maybe, you know that Perth's going to get a decent number of searches anyway. I guess it's about combining certain keywords that have a certain number of volume. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let me just show you this, continue on here. What maybe a better example is the example I gave before with that dress. If you were to put those 5 phrases into this tool here, you'd find that the search volumes are probably quite low, because people aren't necessarily going to use all 5 of those terms in a search very often. but they might use different combinations of those. And that's really what I'm talking about here, is getting those combinations. So here gives you an idea of gives you some search words or keywords, and also the monthly volumes. Now you can sort by that, so you've got largest to smallest if you want to. But you can see just an example there, summer tops, cotton tops. I might use those together in a search phrase. And if I was to put that search summer tops and cotton tops together in a search phrase in this tool, it would probably come up with quite low volumes. But here separately, they're getting between 1 and 10,000 searches a month. So probably, together you're going to attract both of those, the traffic from both of those search terms. So anyway, what I would do is use this, and by broadening your search across the top, you can add more search terms, or refining your keywords along the side there. You can choose, as you can see, the brand, or what type of, in this case, clothing. In your case, depending on what your product is, it'll give you different options. So just refining that and coming up just with a list of keywords you're comfortable with that you're going to use for each one of your pieces of content, essentially. Even if you just do one page at a time. So start with your home page and think, what am I going to do? Now, normally for your home page, I tell people that your home page is often, if you think of someone says to you, what do you do? That would be, if you've got an elevator pitch, if you like, the keyword that you would often use for your homepage might be like an elevator pitch distilled down to 3 to 5 words. That's really what it gets down to, essentially. Okay, and that's why often the homepage is quite difficult to do. Okay, so you've identified those keywords, what they are. Now, remember, you don't have to do this perfectly first time. You can always go back and, just tweak it, add another word, and I'll show you what I mean by that shortly. But basically, once you've done that, you then need to start optimizing your content. So this is really about putting it simplistically here, about putting the keywords in the right places. Now, the reason for that is that's where Google looks. Google looks in certain places. It'll look in the page title, in the URL, in the first couple of paragraphs, and at the images, but it can't see the images, so it'll look at the alt image tag that you put there. And by doing that, it'll build a picture about what that page is about. So you need to do this optimization for every single page so it understands what your pages are about. So in particular, like I said, your home pages and your immediate sub pages are very, very important. But you also need to do it on things like a blog post. So next time when you're doing a blog post, if you do blog posts, it's not about, what can I write about today? It's really, what keyword am I going to use in my blog post? And in that case, what you're trying to look for there is a question or an answer or a solution to a problem. And you can find that just by Googling, and you'll often get people also asked or other things like that, and maybe a question, including that keyword phrase, would be a good blog topic. So that's another way just to approach a blog post next time, and to include those keyword phrases in there. And if you do that, then it will rank quite well, ideally. So here's a really simple example. So I'm Tom's Mechanical. I'm a mechanic in Darwin, and I've decided that I'm going to try and rank for the keyword car mechanic Darwin, which makes sense. So based on that website structure I've got, I'm going to put this, use that keyword in certain places. So I'm going to put it firstly into the title of that page. So Google will look at that and know that it's about a car mechanic in Darwin. It's also going to look at the URL, the website address. And if that's got car mechanic Darwin in it as well, that's a bonus. Then it's going to read the first couple of paragraphs, and it knows that it sees the keyword in there, car mechanic Darwin, so it knows that that's probably what this page is about. But it also has some other associated phrases in there, because I'm a mechanic. I know that roadworthy certificates are often asked about, and so are brake repair. So I'm going to put them in there as well, and also have a link from there to those pages. And Google might follow those and understand a little bit more about what your site structure is all about and what pages might be more important than others. And then finally, it'll look at any images, but it can't see images. So it will look at the alt image tag behind that image, and maybe also the description and even the image file name, but they're less important than the image alt tag. Also happens to be what visually impaired people use if they're using a reader. So it's also important from a full access perspective. Now, you don't want to be spammy here. You just want to do it in a normal conversational way. You don't ever probably want to use your keyword more than, say, 4 times in a piece of text. And that would be a whole page. So in a paragraph, probably once. So if you want to use your keyword twice, which is optimal, you might want to write a couple of paragraphs at least. So that's how you would optimize a page very, very simply, just by putting that keyword in certain places, adding some links, some variations, and conversational English, or whatever language you're going to optimize it in. Okay, so just reinforcing that. So you have to add those keywords in certain places. So if you sell dashboard gifts, in the URL, in the title, in the body, in the alt image tag, and finally, which I didn't talk about before, in the meta title and meta description. Now, this is slightly different. Might need to get your head around this a little bit. So in most website platforms, you can edit how Google displays your page results on a page. And that's the meta title and the meta description. So it appears nowhere other than within a search result. So the reason why you might want to do that is, say, for example, I sell dashboard gifts and I have a 25% sale on now. I might want to put that in my meta title. So when someone searches, it comes up in the search result, people can see that there's a 25% sale on now. And I offer free shipping Australia-wide and Afterpay. I might also try and squeeze that in there somewhere. But I don't necessarily want that in my page title, but I want people to know about it. That's where the metadata becomes, the meta title becomes very important, because it's not going to necessarily help you rank, but it will help you convert those rankings into clicks. So they're going to click on yours because you offer free shipping, or you've got this sale on now, or you've just worded your meta title a little bit more attractively than other people. So that's why that's important. So we're going to go through some of these things. I know I'm running a bit short of time, but I'll just see if I can get through it. So first thing, we're going to start backwards, if you like, firstly with the meta title and the meta description. So like I said, that's the blue title in a search result, and the meta description is the paragraph underneath that. And they're both limited to certain characters. The title is 60 and the description is 160. And you want to try and use all of that if you can. Now, you need to put them into your HTML, into the head section of your HTML of your website. And if you can't do that, that's okay, because most platforms nowadays, like WordPress and Shopify and Wix and Squarespace, all of these ones allow you to do that usually. I can only show you a few examples here, but I'll show you Wix, for example. This is an example of Wix where if you're in the site menu, you click on those 3 dots next to the page, it'll give you this menu here, and you can go to SEO Google settings and change your title, your URL, and your description. Just a word on changing the URL. If you do change your URL to include your keyword, that's a good thing, but your old URL then ceases to exist. So if anyone's going to that, they'll get a broken link, or that page doesn't exist anymore. So you need to do a redirect from the old URL to the new URL. Some platforms do that automatically, like Shopify. Others, like WordPress, and others, I think, like Wix, you might need to get that set up, usually using a plugin. I'm not entirely sure about Wix, to be honest. With WordPress, you would need to use a plugin. So that's Wix. WordPress, you'd need a plugin like Yoast, for example, to do this easily. And you can just edit the snippet. And this is a little bit dated too, because they now allow you to edit the Google snippet or the Facebook snippet or the Twitter snippet, for example. And you can just change the way it looks on those results. With Shopify, you can do it with any page or product or collection at the bottom of those pages. You just edit the website SEO. For the home page, you just need to set that within the preferences section. And WordPress, you also need to set the home page title in the settings, in the settings section of your WordPress admin. So just writing these just very, very quickly, basically, this is an example. So Jessica's yoga studio, her primary keyword is private yoga classes. So she's putting that in first. Her secondary keyword is New York City. And her third keyword is her brand name. So that's sort of the best practice, and to use like a divider between them. So you can either use the vertical lines or just a dash. So it could be keyword, location, business name, or it could be primary keyword, secondary keyword, some feature that you want people to know about, the sale, the afterpay, free shipping, new arrivals, whatever it might be. Nike shoes, men's, women's, free shipping, etc. So that's meta titles. Your alt image tags are basically the little image description of your images that you add to each image on that page. Remember, so this gets a little bit complex too, but they have to be on that page. So say, for example, if it really depends, but sometimes images aren't actually on a page. You might have like a collection of products. They're actually not, they're just virtually there. They're dynamically put there. But generally speaking though, any images on your page should have the keyword for that page identified. So once again, I'll just show you quickly. This is Wix. This is WordPress. If you edit any image in WordPress on that page, you'll be able to add the alt text fairly easily to that. This is Shopify, I think. You just do the same with any image there. You just edit the image. And Wix, if you edit the image, it'll ask you down the bottom, what's in the image, tell Google. So same thing, it's got some character limitations, 125 characters. You want to try and use all of those if you can, and to use the keyword phrase in there as well. Then you also need to add some internal links. And this should just be part of the process when you're adding content to a site, to always try and think of adding links there. So it could be within some text, but it could also be from the home page, you have a link to some product categories, for example, or a featured collection. They're equally the same. Okay, so I'm just going to flick through this. So internal links are important. Okay, so there's a few things. I'm just going to now optimize a page very, very simply. And I'm going to flick through this quickly now. So this is a Shopify store. It's a product, a cardigan. There's some existing information there, some of which I'll leave on there and others I'll replace. Some really good product photos. And then if I go to the very bottom, I can look at the meta title. You can see it's not looking very attractive. Cardigan CK-04. I don't think anyone's really going to click on that. It's not going to attract a lot of clicks anyway. Now, why is CK-04 on there? Because this customer or this client uses this to keep track of their different products. And that's okay. I'm just going to leave that for now, but it allows me to show you some things shortly. So let's assume I've gone off and I've decided I'm just going to change that title to, instead of just cardigan, I'm going to change it to long sleeve cardigan. Now, this is a good example of how you can go back and improve the optimization of your page. So really, in my hurry here, that's a very simple keyword. I could easily have added cotton, women's, etc. So you could go back and add cotton long sleeve cardigan to that, and it would probably help you rank even more. So same with the description. I'm just going to write a description, which I've prepared earlier, and I'm just going to replace that description, which is long sleeve cardigan, with something that's a little bit more readable, a bit more higher quality, that also includes the keyword, hopefully close to the beginning of the sentence. Search engines really prefer that. I don't have enough text to put it there twice, so I could go back and optimize this a little bit better later on and maybe add some more content. Now what I'm doing though is I'm adding some links. So I'm adding a link to dresses and tops because I refer to them in that description. So I would just get the page URL and then put a link title in there for SEO purposes. Okay, so there already, it's looking better. Do the same for tops. I'm going to leave the other information there because it's quite useful information. I could probably format it better, but for now, I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, so there's the links. Now what you need to do is you need to make sure this is if you're optimizing a page, you're retrofitting it, you need to make sure you've got that keyword copied. And then you go down to the images. In this case, it's a product, so quite a few images. And you want to add your alt text just by clicking on the link in this particular case and adding your alt text, long sleeve cardigan. Save that. Now, the debate is still out there as to whether Google expects each of these to be different as well. I would say it's probably better to have the same alt text than none at all. But ideally, you do want to maybe, just to be safe, maybe change it slightly. So in this case, I could put front, or I could put women's or cotton or black, anything. So anyway, you just do that for all the images. I'll just do one more. Just add one more to that. So you can see once again how you could go back and just optimize it slightly better than what I've done in this rush job. Then you just want to make sure you're in the right product category or collection in Shopify speak, but product category or service category, or the right structure. Then we're going to go down to the bottom and we're going to edit the meta title. So this gives me an example to show you. Does that hyperlink direct the customer straight to your website link? Sorry, I'm just, which hyperlink is that one that you're referring to? The one where I put so this is a question. I'm sure you can all see this question, but so is this the link from the dresses and the tops that you're referring to? Yes, so you can imagine someone's on that page, they can then click on that link. It'll take them straight to the tops or the dresses page, but it also helps Google understand a little bit more about how your website's all structured and some of your other categories. It just helps improve your SEO essentially. Now, I'm just going to use this. So I'm going to change that meta title. So I've clicked edit. This is now where I can get rid of that CK04 because in a search result, I don't want that to show. And I'll then muck around with maybe adding another keyword or, some sort of offer or something like that. And as you can see straight away, it starts to read better. It's going to attract more clicks. It's not going to help me rank, but that will help me get more clicks. That click-through that you get from improving your meta title will, in the long run, help you rank as well. So it is, I guess, indirectly helping you rank. So I would do that. You would also optimize the description to make it more salesy, essentially, and also add your URL or add the keyword to the URL. So I'm just you would then save that and you sort of optimize that page. Okay, so I'm just going to move on from here so I can get to a few other things. So you do the same for your product categories, of course. I'm not going to do that right now. It's essentially exactly the same. And then you have to think about those. You've redirected, the old URL doesn't exist anymore, but the new URL, which you've redirected the old one to the new one, Google doesn't know about it because you've just created it. So what you need to do is go back to This is where I use Google Search Console, and they have this URL inspection tool. I would recommend doing this anyway. And you can just put your URL in there and find out if Google knows about it. They'll go away and see if they've indexed it before. It comes back saying it's not on Google. So you can then request indexing and it'll be added to a priority list. I do this if I write a blog post, or if I change pricing, update products, add new products, I'll get Google to re-index the site. So very, very important step, I think, and that's one of the key reasons to have Google Search Console in my books. Okay, just a couple of other things. Now I'm going to move on quickly because one of the other things is just thinking about backlinks, because this is how Google's going to determine your authority. So this is really where you need to think about how many, where can I get some links from? So the first ones, the easy ones, are going to be your social pages. So your Google My Business page, your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, etc. You need to make sure that that's linking back to your domain, your correct domain. Make sure it's got the right HTTPS in there and W's or no W's, etc. So that's the first one. But ideally, you want to get links from industry authorities. So these might be, if you're a member of some industry association, or you're certified by someone, you resell someone's products, or review sites, anything like that, where you can be, if you're listed on that site, ideally you're going to have a link from there to your business. That would really help. You can also use citation sites or business directories to list your business on. I do have a list of these at the end. You can definitely just submit your business to over time. You don't want to submit your business, add your business to just any site, links from any site at all. That's not good. They should be either relevant or they should be some sort of business directory type page. And you want a lot, maybe 20 to 30 or more as a minimum, really, to your homepage. These are what we call citation sites. So, you know, True Local, Local Search, Yelp, wordofmouth.com, Local Store, all these different ones. And they're definitely worth submitting your business to over time. So you don't have to do them all at once. But if you do, you know, 2 today, 5 next week, etc., over time, they'll add up. And it'll definitely improve your rankings, as well as make you more visible, help people find you in other ways as well on other business directories. So I'm not going to show you now, but this is True Local. They're actually quite good in their own right. But you can see at the top, there's add business, and you can easily add your business. You need things like your ABN and your business address. A lot of them, if you work from home, you can hide that business address as well. Backlinks can also you can get backlinks from high authority bloggers. So you can search for a blog. These are guest blogs that I'm talking about here. So you're writing a blog on someone else's blog or website about your particular products or services. So a good way to find those is just to search for Right For Us and then your particular industry area. You might need to be less niche, depending. Like women's fashion, there's lots of guest blog opportunities. Others, there's not so many. So you might just need to be maybe less niche, for example. But just search for that and just see if there's opportunities there that you might want to write a guest blog on, because that helps attract traffic, but also gives you a good backlink as well. Just also, if you don't have Google My Business, it is really, really important, because it is Google's business directory. So it's important to get listed on Google's business directory, get verified by them. But it's also Google reviews as well. So it's important from that perspective. And it will become more important with things like local service ads and those sorts of things, which are on their way here. And then Google will guarantee those ads and those services. But it's all about your reviews as well. So you need to make sure you get some reviews, and that's a good way to do that. So I would just claim your listing and start optimizing it and directing people there to get listings, reviews, I mean. And also, I've got a link to some of these citation sites. You can just add your business to those. So just finally, I'm just finishing up here, is just to think about your performance, because it is really, really critical. What I would probably recommend is just go to this site, gtmetrics.com, in your own time, test your own site, and just see, are you getting an A or a B, or are you getting an E or an F, you know, and or somewhere in between, and why? And that'll tell you why, really. Yeah, so Danielle's been waiting 6 weeks for a postcard from Google. No, unfortunately, I think it's just, it seems to be a common, I would probably get in touch with Google in that instance. There are other ways they might be able to verify over the phone or something like that. But I've heard a lot of people, this is verifying your Google My Business profile, basically. But good on you for doing that, Danielle, because once you've gotten that postcard, you can verify your business and you'll get onto Google My Business. But the other thing I would do is just check gtmetrics.com. If you don't have an account, your user's based in Canada, that's okay. Just as a high level view, just get a view of what, you know, how good or bad your performance is. And if it's bad, then you should fix that, because no matter how much you're attracting people, well, firstly, it will affect your rankings. But secondly, if you're going to all this effort to attract people, you don't want to be losing half of them, you know, straight away. And if it's something like big images, which it often is, large images, slowing down performance, you might want to have a look at something like tinyjpeg.com or other tools that can help you compress those images down. But they need to be definitely under 100K or 120K. No, definitely no bigger than that for your very largest images. So I won't go into that, but there's a couple of tools. There's also this one, batchcompress.com, which is quite good because you can also crop them and all sorts of things with that one there. Okay, so look, I don't really have time here to go into this, but this is just thinking about using blog posts to rank and attract traffic to your site, because they really do work. But when you, before you start, really think about what you're going to write about and put a bit of effort into the quantity of words and the quality and maybe links. Really think about, how can I provide the most information to the people that are searching for it, even if you're sending them off to other links that aren't even to your site, but maybe authorities in your area. That's going to help Google put you up as a rank. So they are very, very good tools to rank for. The reason I show you this, there is a result here where every single search result is a blog post. So sometimes they work better than web pages, static web pages. Now, just quickly, a 12-step action plan. So these are some things you might want to consider doing in just a really simple step-by-step process, rather than thinking, I've got to do all this stuff all at once. So the first thing is just to do an audit and find where you stand. So that tool I talked about before. Then you start to do some keyword research about what phrases do I want to rank for. So you can use Google Keyword Planner, Ubersuggest. There's kwfinder.com, which I don't have listed on here. There's also Moz Keyword Explorer. There's a few of them around. Make sure you got your structure right, and then start to write, develop your keyword plan around that content or that structure, and then start to write some content around them, including those keywords in those places I talked about. So in the title, in the body, etc. And write some decent meta titles and descriptions for each page as well. Even though that's less important, it's still going to get more clicks to your page. And do that for every page that you can, particularly the home page though. Check the mobile version of your website, making sure that it performs well and it looks good. And then any large images, just compress them and add that the alt image tags as well, using the keyword for that page. Add a few links to that page as well. So ideally, you're going to do this all at once when you're optimizing the page, so not all at once, but when you're optimizing each page, you'll do what the keyword is, and I'm going to put that in the title, etc., etc. Submit your business to a few of these business directories I talk about. Connect your social pages in terms of people being able to like, follow, share, etc., your content on your website as well. Set up Google Search Console, Google Analytics if you haven't done that already, because they're quite beneficial. And then just think about, maybe as homework, I'm trying to do this on a regular basis if you can. It's thinking about a blog post that you could write and some authoritative, some keyword, long tail keyword question that you can maybe answer for a customer or your audience. Okay, that's about it essentially. So, sorry, I don't have the link to the resources here. It's there, but I can't paste it in the information. You're just going to have to, unfortunately, write that down. But it's a bit.ly.3v3 capital HQ 4 capital C, and all of the resources that I've talked about are in there. You can also send me an email if you have a question after this, or you didn't get something that I mentioned, or you had problems accessing some of those resources. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you got some value out of that today. Yes, I'm just going to leave that up there for a little bit longer so you can write that down. Now, for those that aren't on the, you might see digital solutions mentioned there. So I'm delivering this as part of the digital solutions program. So if you're not on that, you might want to investigate that program. Will this still be sent? And yeah, so I think everyone will receive a link as well to this webinar. So if you want to watch it again, you're welcome to just watch the recording of the webinar. Also, if you are interested in the program, the business, I thought I had another slide there, you'll have to go to businessstation.com.au and find out more about the digital solutions program there. But other than that, thank you for your time. Appreciate it, and look forward to maybe on one of my other webinars.